Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. It's Wednesday, and it's time for Norma Talks. Every Wednesday, well, actually, it starts on Tuesday when I think about what am I going to talk about today? Or it's been a couple of years now that I've done this every Wednesday. I don't like to repeat myself, but some titles need it, number one. And number two, as more people listen, they don't always go back and listen to the other ones, which is absolutely fine. But I'm had a little chuckle just before I came on air because Karen B., one of our regular people, had written in saying, "Good morning, Norma," in the comment section. And then she says, "Could you please address why certain people trigger your emotional state?" Interestingly enough, I was going to talk about emotions today. So I was chuckling to myself as we opened up. When I went to look at actually I went to the tarot this morning and said, okay, like I had a couple of titles in my head that I thought I could talk on. And as I looked at what we had in Monday night's mental mind treatment, we had several to do with emotions. So I happened to look through and grabbed a couple of strong emotional symbols to be able to talk about that. And also what came up was the defensive element that we have defenses. And that I feel fits into Karen B's question. So let's talk about emotions. I mean, I know I touch on it a lot because as far as I'm concerned, we are an emotional planet. The planet feels, knows, is. In our system, we have a brain. We have a mentalization that our society gives a lot of credit to. And it's as though the mental element is really where it's at. And yes, it has a place. But as far as I'm concerned, the mental and the emotional need to be balanced. It's neither one nor the other. They have a role. And like the mental sets out the program. You might say the side, what would you call that? The outline. The mental, when you spend time, you want something, you want to go. Your mind, that's where your mind works. But the quotient of feeling, the quotient of how important it is to you, the ability or the need for having that feeling around it, what that is the emotion. To have just a thought without emotion, there's not too much you might call body or life to it. But when you put emotion with a thought, then it works. I often use as an example, actually, which I don't have here, but it's to do with the high priestess symbol in the tarot, number 2, and number 11, which is justice, which is a higher aspect of 2. When you make a decision to do something, if I made a decision that I'm going to go and visit somebody, and I'm going to go by air. I'm going to go by air. I'm going to go visit my friend in Toronto, who I haven't seen for several years. And that's what my thought is. That's what my plan is. But the reality is, until I absolutely go and buy the ticket, I am not 100% committed. You may think you are, but you are not. The action. So what propels an action is the emotion. The mental might say you got to go buy a ticket. But if you procrastinate, if you don't go buy the ticket, then you don't get a ticket. If you don't choose a date, if you don't do all those things, then you haven't done it. But when you have that inner drive, that's where the emotion kicks in, because now you have committed to that journey. And that's the beginning of this other commitments that are made, but that's the beginning. And that's what I find, excuse me, that a lot of people don't understand. They think it just happens. It doesn't just happen. Now, there's another aspect of emotionality. we can get confused. We can have our ideas, etc., but we'll emotionally will be confused. In other words, it's blurry. We're not really sure. And so when we go to make a decision, if we're not real sure, and when all of us hasn't come into an alignment, very often we make a mistake. We'll make a decision that does not work. That's because we didn't stop and project it or think about it. We just thought, oh, this sounds good. And a lot of ideas do think good. And a lot of ideas we think, yes, we can go ahead and do this quite easily. But the key is we've got to be really careful. And it is being careful that our motive, what is our motive? Is our motive to achieve? Do we have everything understood in the achieving? Sometimes when we achieve A, it means B gets left behind and creates an issue. Once we're involved in the life pattern, there's many aspects. It's like having a plate of, we'll make it a food. Like my food. We have a plate of food, and we have all sorts of different things on that plate. But each one has to be taken care of in a specific order in order to achieve the goal. And that's what often isn't recognized. Also, we can get so caught up with wanting to achieve what we want is that we are blinded by anything else. Someone comes along and says, that's not going to work. And this is where Karen B's question is that certain people trigger your emotional state. If someone, you've got a commitment and you're very, very keen on something, and somebody comes along and sort of slings off and says, oh, that's not important, or that won't work, you're going to have an emotional reaction to that. You're going to have a very strong emotional reaction to that because it's something that you have your heart set on, or we could say your mind is set on it too, but it's when your emotions are involved, it's like your heart is set on that. And if you do not have the backing, or someone else sort of puts it down or makes it feel like it's not really that important, you will have a reaction. And unfortunately, when you have a really strong emotional reaction, it's like you become blinded. You don't see, or you don't recognize to know. And that's why many people have a defensive attitude. That, it's like they have barricades. So things can't get to that heart, can't get to the feelings, can't get to the awareness. Some people, and I'm sure you've been around long enough to feel, is that they have a barricade out there. Whether that's their tone of voice, whether it's the words they use, whether it's just pure, it's like, leave me alone. But they're not going to be in agreement with too much. They're not going to really go around and say, yeah, this is what's going to work. So in the other way, very often ourselves, what we do is we make a decision, or we have an idea, and then all we do is we just put our heels in, you might say, and no matter what anybody says, you're going to see a difference. Being able to communicate without emotion on a situation is not the easiest thing when you have a commitment to the situation. We see that a lot today when people who are in politics, or people who have a certain idea and they're out wanting to have everybody agree with them. They don't like it when someone else comes along and says, I don't really think that's the best idea. Maybe there's another way of doing this, or maybe there's another way of doing that. All of that. But it's like you're going to hold on to whoever is not agreeing. And this is what happens. So the emotionality gets misplaced. And consequently then comes into barricades. This is the way it is. I grew up with a father was like that. This is how it is. That's it. And I used to argue with him. And he used to say to me, "You will argue black as white." And I mean, that was my that was my fun of the day, was being able to get my father riled up. But it's like, really, I've not, as an adult, when I became an adult, I found that wasn't really the best way to go about solutions and creating exactly what it is that you did want. But I did love a good debate. I often think if I had been able to get through school, I probably would have joined the debating people, like debate different things, because I've always liked that. And I will question sometimes when a person has an idea, or where's it come from? What is the benefit? If you have an idea and you feel really strongly about it, which means your emotions are involved, what's the benefit? Is it the benefit to you? Is it benefit to mankind? What is the benefit of that? It's like I've seen many, I've been reading for so many years. I've seen many, many people who sometimes have one little thing where they're hooked on and they can't let go. And they are willing to risk everything in order to be right. I do not believe that anybody is absolutely right. It's a thing you may prefer, it's a thing you might like, you might want. But so what you may find, Karen, is that you've got to look at, do you want to be right? Do you want to be right? Do you want to have things go your way? Oh, well, I think we all like it to have it when it goes your way. But when you begin to recognize that there's a way in which to be able to put things on an even keel, and to notice how one person's emotionality and the other person's emotionality, that's where they're going to hit. But it's very much like when we get our ideas, this is the way it is. And you see it a lot in politics, you see it a lot in planning, and see it a lot in families where you're all of a sudden moving into a power struggle. So what is a power struggle? Power struggle is you want to be right. You want people to listen to you without argument, without any discussion even sometimes. And some people don't like it if you talk like whatever you're saying is correct, which it is to you. Very often people take umbrage to that. They don't want that. They don't know what they want sometimes, but they don't want that. They don't want you saying this is the way it is. I've learned how to be diplomatic when I'm dealing with a client. I like to think I've learned how to be diplomatic anyway. But truth is a truth in how you are emotionally, how you are in what you're wanting to create, and where you want your goals to go, and what you want to do with all of the things that you want to do, and how you're being. Understanding emotionality is really important because it's a part of who we are. Some people you meet, they're so suppressed emotionally, it's all mental. That's difficult to take because usually there's no reasoning. But there again, on the flip side, if you're all rational, there's no warmth. There's no sort of roundedness. There's no place, there's no room to be taken in and to engage. So balance, we'll be back to the lovely word that I often use as just balance, having a balance within all things. And being aware of when you're emotional and what is it that you have in what's the word, that you have an investment in. What is the investment? What is upsetting? So, Karen, when you say certain people trigger your emotional state, take a look at what their investment is in whatever the topic is, and your investment. 2 trains hit. Because no one wants to be wrong or not be right, whichever way you want to look at that. And the thing is, it's just ideas. It's just ideas. And when a person is really pushing or really stubborn, then you back, as far as I'm concerned, you back away and go, okay, because you don't have to prove your point. You do not have to prove that you are right. It's that rightness. And it's like we don't want to feel like an idiot. We don't want to feel less than. We don't want to feel those things. And some people are great at poking the bear, as they say, poking the bear, as a picking out where you've got vulnerability and getting a rise. I've known a lot of people like that. They just seem to want to have you in a state because it keeps you, what's the word, unbalanced a little bit. So yeah, sometimes we have viewpoints that are not accepted by others. I mean, look at me. I was talking about topics that most people were not even looking at or accepting way back when, and I just knew what I was doing and like to make it make sense to them. But a lot of people thought I was totally nuts. I was one of those, whatever those people were. So then beginning to claim when I first started, I didn't claim too much. And then claiming, yeah, you're psychic, yes. And yet I knew other people were much more psychic than myself. Like in Bishop, and because I was always interested in growth. What can I do, see, and help a person to grow and have their lives work? That was where I came from. But that wasn't always respected at all. But somehow I managed to carry on and keep on no matter what. And I just sort of ignored a lot of it. I just did my own thing and created a life that worked. And it was because I wanted to help people. Plus, also remember, while that was happening, I was also learning. I was also going to workshops. And then I got to the point doing some ministry work and stuff, learning how everything came together. So it's like knowing that in the spiritual point of view, that you are loved for you, that you are accepted for you. It is not about you having to prove that you're lovable or that you're acceptable, because you automatically are, because you're here on this planet. And the key is to allow that love, to allow that knowingness into you without defensiveness. Defensiveness means you're not sure. So, Karen, I think that might answer that a little bit, is just to know where you are shaky, where you're wanting to be right so much. And if other people don't see it, that's their problem, not yours. You just have to know within your heart that for you at this moment of time, it's correct. Another moment of time, you might say, if I added that makes a little bit of a difference, but you will do that on your journey. I also want to say to Raina, she says, a great topic. Thank you. Well, I'm glad, because sometimes I sit down here and not quite sure where I'm going with it. And Sab says, thank you, Norma. This makes a lot of sense. I have to say, that's one thing about I like to make sense. And that comment means a tremendous amount to me, because I like it to make sense. Because of the bottom line, if it doesn't make sense, people won't accept it. People won't recognize, oh, that's where I want to be right. That's where I want to have an understanding. And this is what I'm really upset about. It happens. We are emotional beings and we have reactions. But the key is to understand that and to understand where it's coming from, and to know that you have a mind, you have emotions, and when we balance those two, we can create miracles for sure. Well, I think that's all, and all the comments. I just want to thank you for your comments. I want to thank you for everything, the likes, the everything else, everything that is there. And Karen says thank you again, because I enjoy doing these and I want to keep on doing them. And I need your support. I need your thumbs up. I need the comments. I need all the things that goes on into that. And for those that don't know, for the new people, that I've had 2 years going through a cancer thing, and I'm getting stronger and stronger and stronger, which is great. I seem to be fine. Everything's going, but at the same point, I'm okay. Now, where do we go from here? As once more, I have energy where before every day was like there wasn't much energy, but now I feel bright and alive. And I'm just not sure where I'm going from this part. I want to keep going. And so your support, your thoughts on that's the other thing I wanted to ask. If you have a topic that you would like me to talk about, please do so. This particular one, Wednesday mornings, is really for me to be able to explore different topics. But, your input is very, very welcomed. So you can make the comment back to me and say, here, like talk about that. Several of you have done that over the couple of years, and we've done that. But it's like Monday night when I look back and see what's going on with Monday night, then the mental mind treatments, that gives me some food for thought 2 times, like it did today, and also on Sunday thought. But anyway, you have a great day. Enjoy. I have to tell you one. Sorry, I feel like a mouth is keeping going. This morning, I looked out my window and there was a young buck of about a year because his antlers were only about this high. And I was tempted to go, there were 2 of them. I was tempted to go out and get a picture, but you never know with the bucks that we have the does around a lot that come. And of course, it's hungry because we've got snow here finally. And but what was interesting, I've seen the bucks 2 or 3 years old, but these were just a year by the tiny little horns. And I believe there were 2 of them. Anyway, nature gives me the inspiration, and like here they are looking for some food. Don't know where they're going to find it at this time of the year, but they've got their little horns, and they were taller than I remembered the last lot of 1 years. So all these wonderful things happen all the time. So be open for wonder, open for explanation and realization. You have a great week. I will see you on Sunday and again on Monday. Bye now.